Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for dynasty domination. And we're back, and today we are talking about the 2022 draft class. Been hitting the last few years, and we're up to the most recent. We're going to kind of structure this episode a little bit different. So on that note, I'm going to just let Dan kind of get straight into it and talk about what we're doing today.
Yeah, so we've been kind of doing a deeper dive on, a select number of players from the most recent years, started with the contract year players, and now we're working up to guys going in their second year. So yeah, today, instead of doing the deep dive, you can't judge too critically off of a single year sample size, making the rookie the acclimatize into the NFL. So we're just going to go and do like a brief look at several players and just kind of get our feel on them, something we liked, and maybe what we think they have to offer. So nothing too wild. But with that, I guess we'll get into it. Feel like starting with the running back.
Always. Let's do it.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, we just got to list a couple random guys, and I'm just gonna dive right in with Kenneth Walker. Obviously Seattle running back. Last year he started with us in the For the Belt league as the 102, and he's maintaining a lot of that value. He's got a 104, like a 2023 104 value on Keep Trade Cut, and last year he finished as the RB 18, and he posted 5 top 15 weeks, 3 top 10 weeks, and then he had 2 top 3 weeks. So I mean, that's pretty solid rookie year. So yeah, I don't know, man. How do you feeling about Kenneth Walker? He got a little woke up by the 2023 draft, didn't he?
Yeah. The addition of Zach Charbonnet is makes this much muddier than it would have seemed at the end of last year. We all kind of thought, all right, well, here's Walker. He's signed up, 3 down back. Let's go. Because he looked great. Like you pointed it out, had some really, really good weeks. A couple of stats that I thought were super interesting: yards after contact per attempt. He was at 3 basically. That made him 15th in the league, which is pretty good for a rookie. And he had 50 forced missed tackles, so that made him 12th in the league. Yeah, I'm pretty like, you would have thought this was a slam dunk, and then they bring in Charbonnet. And you know what? I think Pete Carroll's kind of onto something here, because when you look at Charbonnet and Walker, like, they kind of complement each other really well. And in terms of like maybe Walker's fantasy, it may hurt his fantasy value because he's going to use both these guys. They're both really highly talented guys. But when kind of comparing the things they do, like, I think Charbonnet covers up a lot of Walker's weaknesses. Like, you look at Walker in 2022 with the Seahawks, he had 159 zone attempts and only 70 gap attempts. So it's like double the amount. Charbonnet was a lot more balanced for UCLA last year. And I know that's like a scheme thing, but like, Charbonnet was at 103 zone attempts and 91 gap attempts. So I feel like he's there to kind of be that more like zoned outside runner. Also, you look at Kenneth Walker's receiving grade, 56 from PFF. Zach Charbonnet had a 77.1, and that was with Charbonnet having 33 receptions, whereas Walker only had 34 targets. So like,
Wow.
they just kind of complement each other very, very well. Like, basically what Pete Carroll went for was, instead of having a dominant pure runner and then like a later round receiving guy to kind of complement him, he just wanted a dominant guy at both spots. And I think it's going to work. I just think it might hurt both their values.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance for that. Kenneth Walker he only had 11 games with meaningful snaps, and he finished with 11th in rushing yards in the league and 9th in rushing touchdowns. So I mean, there's a chance that if he was able to do that on, 65% of games, he could maybe deliver on the same kind of workload, even sharing some of the roles in the backfield. So he's got I think he still has standalone value. And I'm surprised to hear myself say that, but apparently it's true in the world if he's still retaining a 104 value on
Yeah.
Keep Trade Cut. So yeah, and those 2023 values are kind of weird just to the nature of this draft class, you know.
Hmm.
But no one has a value of a 101, so as
Yeah.
much as they'd like to. Um, but let's roll on to the next guy. I
Mm.
was going to talk about James Cooks.
Mm.
James Cook. So obviously Buffalo, and he was the 111 in our draft, and it's got a value slightly lower, like the 201,
Hmm.
and finished as a RB 44. Not super impressive, and he did have two top 15 weeks, and they're projecting him to be like the RB 31 this year.
Hmm.
And I thought they're kind of throwing a little bit of shade on this guy. I mean, his yards per carry were 5.7, and that's
Mm.
tied for
It's good.
third in 2022 for RBs with over 50 carries. So you can't really be mad at that. And he had a top 10 receiving grade. And yeah, his breakaway yard percentage was second in the league. So like he was explosive. It's
Hmm.
very impressive stuff. Obviously the sample size is kind of weird, kind of small, and you know, he was sharing the backfield with Singletary. Now he's got Damian Harris. So I don't know. What are you thinking on him?
You know, doing this exercise, I was kind of like just trying to look at interesting stats and exactly what you said, just kind of coming up with how we feel about these guys based on numbers. And I couldn't find a lot that got me excited about Cook. I'm not gonna lie. Like he's super explosive. I get it. He's fun to watch. But I did find a number for you guys. It's not really about Cook, but that number is between 10 and 11. And that number is the number of carries the RB1 in Buffalo has averaged per game since 2018 is between 10 and 11 carries a game. I just don't think that James Cook is the guy to buck this trend. I don't see it. Like LaShawn McCoy was the last one for Buffalo in 2017 to have over 200 carries. Everybody else has had less than that. It's just I don't see James Cook as this guy who's going to come in and be like the three down guy that Buffalo needs to all of a sudden start getting 300 carries, especially they bring in Dalton Kincaid. All we've heard all offseason is rumors that they wanted Dalvin Cook, they wanted this running back, they should trade for Saquon. Like it doesn't seem like they feel very solidified in the running back position. And then they bring in Damian Harris. So it just feels exactly what you're saying. He was splitting time with Devin Singletary last season. I feel like it's just going to be the same, which he can be explosive, he can be fun. But to me, the RB31, like maybe he'll get higher than that, but that doesn't sound that crazy to me. I just don't know that Buffalo is built like that. And I don't see Cook as the guy to like change the way they've been doing things since 2018.
And I think they've shown that they don't want to change,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Good for them. Um, So let's roll on to I'm going to Damian Pierce, man.
Mm,
So he was the 109 in our for the belt league, and now he's got the 110. So his value's pretty much the same as it was. He was the RB 28 last year. He was per game the RB 20. So
mm,
give him a little bit of bump there for time missed. He had 4 weeks in the top 15, 2 weeks top 10, and he had a top 5 week as well. And they're projecting him to be the RB 17. So there's lots of love headed his way, and I'm gonna let you get in on him first if you're interested.
um, I didn't have like a super lot on Damian Pierce outside of like kind of the general stuff, but
You want
man,
me to jump in and you can
yeah,
counter
yeah,
my?
honestly, you could go
Okay,
for it and I can kind of
I didn't because I didn't have a lot either, but he was fourth in missed tackles forced,
yep.
which was like that's huge, and
Hmm.
that's awesome. But I really don't really want to talk about him. I mean,
Mm,
I want to finish this conversation we were starting with James Cook,
hmm.
and that's that. I'm scared of Singletary. Like
Mm,
I'm really scared of Singletary. He's projected as the RB 23. He had more top 15 games, more top 10 games than Pierce had last year.
hmm.
And he's been awesome and he's had these pockets of pop games. And you're telling me that like he never had a chance in the past 4 years to have more than like 10 to 12 carries per game. And now he's going to an offense where they could just, finally, get some work out of him.
Mm-hmm.
It really kind of it's got me leaning away from Damian Pierce, and like I said, this is just kind of how I feel. Not really a take on Pierce at all,
Yeah.
but I don't
I,
know. Where
I
you at?
it's hard to argue. Like even if you look at their rushing grade from last year, it's pretty similar. Damian Pierce had an 84.8 and Devin Singletary had an 85.1. So like technically Singletary, according to PFF, was slightly better. Um, I think I think you could argue Singletary benefited production wise from being on a far superior team with a lot
Sure.
more going on. And then I just like I'm with you. Like I don't Pierce may not be solidified, but like you hit the nail on the head. He was fourth in missed tackles, but he did that in 13 games.
Right.
Everybody else in the top 10 was around 16 at least games. And he had 62 forced missed tackles compared to Singletary's 36. And like he only had 30 more touches than him ish, like 220 to 193. So like I just think he's like a more elusive, more explosive player. But I do think Singletary is going to threaten him more than people may um be aware of. Like I think people, like you're saying, sleeping on Singletary. Like, okay, he's not the guy that we thought he was coming out of the draft. You and I were both pretty high on Singletary when he came out, and he's not that guy, but he's still a productive like member of a team. And so he is going to take some carries. And like you're saying, he's been efficient every year he was in Buffalo. So if Damian Pierce has some kind of sort of sophomore slump or anything like that, he'll be there to snatch the touches away immediately.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, shoot. Let's see a guy who doesn't have to worry about anyone snatching touches away from him. I guess Rashad
this
White,
is a weird
which
one.
yeah, this one was really weird. Here I am kicking myself for some of these names I selected, but so Rashad, he come out as the 202 last year for us, and now he's around the 112, so a little bit higher. He did finish as the RB 36 and had 3 top 15 weeks and 2 top 10 weeks. He is going off at the RB 25 going into this year. And I'm looking at the depth chart here, and it's like nobody, right? Chase Edmonds, who has proven that 1 year in Arizona was all he really had. And
Mm-hmm.
then Keyshawn Vaughn, who is, the Kyle Trask of running backs. So I don't know what exactly is going on with Tampa Bay, but Rashad White is over here. It's like 3.7 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
And, the catch rate was good and the receiving work was solid, but it wasn't anything different than what Lenny Fournette was doing. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
wonder if this is a Tom Brady thing and not seeing him, you know, perform that well on the ground kind of has me a little frightened about what's about to happen. Especially, it's like Baker Mayfield comes in, and I feel like Baker is not like obviously he's not a superstar quarterback like Tom Brady is, but he's probably going to lean on what works, and in this offense, that's going to be the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully Rashad can figure out something on the ground because I just don't see rushing being a part of the Tampa Bay offense. And so I'm kind of scared on that RB 25 projection a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be the starter there, so he's still going to get a lot more opportunity. And then, like, but I'm with you. But we all kind of knew that about Rashad White coming out too, is that like rushing wasn't his primary way of getting it done. Like he was always kind of he was one of the better receiving backs coming out of the draft last year that we liked a lot. And you're right. Like it wasn't anything different than Leonard Fournette was doing, but it was still highly efficient. Like I brought it up and compared it to two other guys who are pretty well known in PPR leagues and like receiving leagues as far as running backs, Saquon Barkley and Aaron Jones.
Never heard of him.
He's pretty similar to those guys in terms of like efficiency and production. White had 58 targets, Barkley had 76, Jones had 72. White had 50 receptions, Barkley had 57, Jones had 59. So they're right kind of all in that area. White had 290 yards, Barkley had 338 yards, Jones had 395 yards. So yeah, they had more yards than him, but yards per reception was pretty close. Between White and Barkley, it's almost identical, 5.8 for White and 5.9 for Barkley. Aaron Jones had them both beat at 6.7, but still kind of like fairly close. And then 2 touchdowns for White, 0 for Barkley, and 5 for Aaron Jones. So like that's highly efficient receiving like numbers. Jones and Barkley benefit a lot from their dual threat ability. And to see him kind of finish in a rookie season where Tampa Bay's offense wasn't as great as it usually is, kind of finish with that efficiency, it at least makes me excited for his ability to play in the league as in terms of as a receiving back. But you're right, like the rushing 3.7 yards per carry is not great on a team that may be worse. You never know. Like it's scary, but I still have some faith in Wyatt.
Yeah, and like you're saying, just workload alone should warrant some attention and some production. So it may not be pretty, but it's definitely going to be hitting the ground running. You know what I mean? No other options unless Dalvin ends up there. No, I don't know what's going on. Zeke, maybe, who knows? Speaking of just partying all the time, I'm going to pivot to the quarterback
All right,
room.
let's do it.
Save a little excitement for the end. So, let's see. I went ahead and put down Desmond Ritter.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, with Atlanta, he was not drafted in that league. He was a $7 fab pickup in the month of May last summer, and now he's valued at the 302. So that's an improvement. You can't really call it much, but he was the quarterback 48 last year, with one top 15 week, and he's projected to be the quarterback 29 this coming year, which I think is a little bit of shade, man. Like
I think so.
that's pretty low. That's pretty terrible. Um, he didn't really do too much at all. As far as I don't know. He was all right, but he didn't impress me all that much. He had a couple 200-yard games,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the Atlanta offense is more about the players around and him himself. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get the Bijan bump. This O line was, the best run blocking, and they're one of the top pass blocking as well. So he's going to be able to create at some level, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a competitive team in a division that's not all that competitive. But I don't know. I feel like I could steal some thunder here, so I better let you jump in.
Oh, I don't. I didn't have a. You know me. I'm not the biggest quarterback whisperer or talker, but I did. I'm with you. Like it's about the weapons. He's had longer to sit in the offense. And if you look, so he only played 4 games last season, but he improved every week. Like, was he overly impressive? Absolutely not. But in week 15, he had an overall grade of 43.1. Horrible. In week 16, that went up to 52.5. Still not great, but hey, improvement. In week 17, it shot all the way up to 72.7 all of a sudden. So now we see a pretty big jump in improvement. And then in week 18, it even went up a little bit more to 74.6. So, okay, what we see is a kid got dropped in, got his head cracked in a little bit in week 15 and started to improve. Like that's at least a positive sign for you. And then, like you're saying, he's got a good line. Arthur Smith has a pretty basic, I don't want to call it basic because that sounds rude, but like pretty easy offense for a quarterback, I would argue, to just kind of distribute to all these playmakers that they spent the last few years gathering up in the draft. So yeah, I think it's shade, but I mean also you get it. We've not seen Desmond Ritter, but I'm with you. I'm pretty high on Ritter. I think he'll get his value will be higher by the end of the year, I think.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said about a guy who had 115 attempts as a rookie and threw no interceptions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's clean. And I don't know. I don't think it's too much to read into, but it was like kind of a historic thing that he did with Cincinnati. Like he's
Hmm.
obviously a leader, obviously a winner at some capacity. So the fact that they did nothing to challenge his quarterback one status on this team means, well, Taylor Heineke, but what are you gonna do? Means that we could probably expect him to do something impressive. So I look
Hmm.
forward to seeing what that is. Um, but yeah, let's roll on, man.
Let's
I'm
do it.
gonna go to Sam Howell. He was a free $0 pickup last December. Now he's valued pretty close to Ritter at the 305. Um, so yeah, points per game, he was the QB 8.
Hmm.
Ooh, yeah, that's spicy. But he actually finished 58th, which is all good. But that was 1 week in the top 10, which was pretty much his only game at all. He finished that single week as the QB 7. It was week 18, so maybe the competition wasn't as high, but what I saw and what I liked was the running efficiency. Like, he was hustling. That's something we saw at North Carolina, that he was kind of a tough guy that could do a two read and tuck and run. And the fact that he scored a touchdown for the Washington Commanders, something Brian Robinson only did 2 times on the ground in a 13 game season in
Woof.
his lone game, while averaging 7 yards per carry, something that Gibson and Brian Robinson probably did in 0 games. I'm just saying, man. The guy's he's showing life, and he's got Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. Like there's options for him to be successful. So projecting him at the QB 26, I think that feels about right.
Yeah.
You can it's hard to get like pick 25 guys that are going to do worse than him, but I give it a
Yeah,
try.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, how was an interesting kind of deep dive here. I mean, because like you're saying, there's people there, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel in a pinch, Logan Thomas, if he can stay healthy, is still good. Antonio Gibson as a receiver out of the backfield. Like there's places he can go. And like, I don't know, is a big play Washington offense about to come for Ron Rivera? Like, all right, so in 2021 for UNC, Sam Howell's average depth of target was 11.7, which was sixth in the nation that season. His ADOT in the one last game, or the one game he played last season, was 9.7. That would have tied him for fourth in the league for the
Damn.
year if he had continued that for the whole season. Now, he would have been tied with Derek Carr and Zach Wilson, so that doesn't necessarily relate to good production. But the guys in front of him were Josh Allen, Marcus Mariota, and Tua Tagovailoa. So, like, if he's in that company, like, I don't know, he's not afraid to whip it, I guess is what I'm saying. And he's got the weapons. Like, maybe what they needed was a guy in there that's not afraid to just try to get these weapons to ball. And maybe Sam Howell's that guy. I don't know if it's going to work out necessarily. Like, I don't know if he's going to sling it to the right guy every time, but I think they found somebody who's not afraid to at least try to push the ball downfield. And that might be really good for the Commanders.
I think it's kind of what they've been missing, and it feels like he's got nothing to lose. And I mean, just Jacoby Brissett's there if something goes awry, but it's this whole Washington team. I think it's going to be fun to watch, and I hope they succeed. It doesn't seem likely in that division, but I think they're going to put up some interesting football, and that's what it's all about
Should
for
be fun.
for this guy. Yeah. All right. Speaking of interesting football, we're going with Brock Purdy as the
Mm.
last one here, and it was kind of a weird quarterback class, so bear with us. But Brock was picked up for $11 last December. And it seems like a good investment because now he's going as the like a 2023 to 212 if you were to try and trade him. And per game, and I had to do a little bit of math here, 6 meaningful games per game, he was the QB 16. And actually 5 of his 6 games were top 15, 3 were top 10, and one of them was top 5. And I'm saying all this to you because he's projected as the QB 32.
Mm.
Now is that some Trey Lance stuff or what?
I think it's probably injury, Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, just all of it roped into one. I just don't think anybody has any clue what to expect from San Francisco's quarterback room. We know San Francisco will be good because they always are, regardless of who's in that. Well, I guess they're not always, but they're always decent enough on offense, regardless of who the quarterback is. So yeah, I think it's a lot to do with that. And it gets it makes it hard to get really excited about it. But when you look at what Brock Purdy did, I don't know if he's healthy, I can't see how he's not the guy. Weeks 13 to the wild card round, Brock Purdy's touchdown to interception ratio was 16-3. Like that just is too good to not rely on again when you don't know what you have with Trey Lance and you know what you have with Sam Darnold. So I don't know. Like I think Purdy will probably end up getting a lot better than that 32 if he's healthy. But that's the huge thing is how is his elbow going to hold up?
Yeah, I hope it holds up, man, because I really think he's going to be kind of a big deal this year. And I think that, I mean, San Francisco obviously loves him, right? They love
Mm-hmm.
the work ethic and the locker room presence and the energy. And a true fan has no choice but to love Brock Purdy because in the 6 weeks to close out the season, not even counting any playoff games, Brock Purdy threw at least two touchdowns in six consecutive games.
Damn.
The last San Francisco 49er quarterback to do that was Jeff Garcia
Hmm.
in 2021. So if you want to see or some 2001,
Okay. 2001. Gotcha.
2001, holy smokes, I'm old. 2001 kids, back before you were born. But you got to love that, man. I mean,
Hmm.
this offense has been all about the ground and one dimensional through Jimmy G and through Alex Smith and all kinds of stuff. So now to see something electric, to see these high quality wide receivers be able to get in the end zone without having to get super weird with it to get
Hmm.
Debo in there. It's nice. It's nice to see someone just utilize the weapons as they're meant to be used. So I think they'll take that and run with it. So
Yeah, I'm 100% with you.
all right, man. Well, just to get it out of the way, we're gonna knock out a couple of tight ends,
Yep.
America. So if you gotta go to the bathroom, this is the time. No, I'm starting with Greg Dolchik, and
Hmm.
probably say his name wrong. Not as bad as the next guy's name, but he was a 3.8 in our for the belt draft, and he is trending there at the 206 right now, which I was a little bit surprised to see that kind of value. These tight ends, it must be a weird class we're comparing him to, but he finishes the tight end 29, which was fine, but he had 6 top 15 weeks, four top 10, and he had alone top three. He's being projected as the tight end 14 this year.
Mm.
And yeah, I gotta tell you, he did not uh play in 7 weeks last year. So he's basically was awesome when he was on the field, other than those 7 weeks. And I just don't. I mean, I don't have too much to say about him except for we've seen Sean Payton do well, on tight ends, and maybe Russell Wilson hasn't always been the best tight end guy, but I feel like Dolchik could slot in pretty well with this team, and that's really where I like him. The slot, 58% of his snaps were in the slot last year, which was fifth amongst tight ends. So I think he's going to be on the field. I think he's going to be a playmaker. And I feel like it's hard to say this, but I think he's a pretty established part of this offense, surprisingly.
Yeah, and I don't. You're right. He looked explosive when he was on the field. He just kind of wasn't there the whole time. It was hard to see really what was going on in Denver. So, I don't have a ton to say about him except that, Sean Payton, in theory, should be licking his chops. I mean, the last time he had like an explosive tight end coming into his second year, that was Jimmy Graham. And in Jimmy Graham's second year, he had 149 targets, 99 catches, 1,300 yards, and 11 touchdowns. So I'm not saying that Greg Jolchich is going to have 1,300 yards or 11 touchdowns, but a guy who is willing to throw the ball to an athletic receiving tight end now has another one that he can use. So he's worth a look. He's worth stashing. The 206 seems rich to me for a guy that's barely played, but I probably wouldn't trade him for that either, to be honest, because I want to wait and see what he's going to do with Sean Payton.
Absolutely. And I mean, I didn't want to make a Jimmy Graham comparison. I want to leave that out there for anyone else. But yeah, you know who else played with Jimmy Graham, right? So little
Yeah,
Russ.
didn't go
So,
super well though, really.
but you know that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson have had conversations that include the words Dolchik and Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, they
And
had to
like so
have.
I feel like it's there. It's there. Do you want to introduce the next guy? Can you do better than me?
I'm not sure, but I'll try it. It's a Chigzimiu Okonkwo, I
All
think
right.
is how you say it.
That's impressive, man. That's better than I would have got. He was picked up during the summer last July for $1, which was a good dollar
Impressive.
spent. Because yeah, he's actually valued on the keep trade cut there at the 204 right now.
Woof.
Yikes. Yeah. So the tight end 25 finish was pretty impressive for him. That's 5 top 15s, 4 top 10s, and he had a lone top 3 in there. Projected as the tight end 13, so just one step above Greg, and it's easy to see why.
Hmm.
I'll let you hit it, man, and then I got a couple of speed balls here.
Well, I mean, he's super, super explosive. And I think the juxtaposition between the offense that he was on and his explosivity made him look even more enticing. Chigo Okonkwo was at 14 yards per reception, which led the league for all tight ends. Um, that was on an offense that was averaging 5.1 yards per play, which was 30th in the league for yards. So like he was averaging almost 3 times as many yards as the offense was as a whole. Now that's probably fairly standard actually. Like if you look at like say Jamar Chase and then you look at the Bengals yards per play, I'm sure it's like 8 to 17 or whatever. It's still just a ridiculous number. So yeah, I mean the addition of DeAndre Hopkins is interesting in Tennessee. I don't think it affects Okonkwo that much. I think it definitely affects the receiver room, which we may get into later. But I think Okonkwo should be fine. And like there's no one there really to contend with him. I think didn't they trade for Jonnu Smith? Didn't they get Jonnu Smith back? Or
I
who?
think he went to Atlanta.
Atlanta. That's who got Smith to pair with Kyle Pitts. So yeah, even
Yeah,
more so. Like there's nobody there
it's
in
literally nobody.
to compete with him. So like he's going to dominate that target share. He already was by the end of the year last year. And I think we can see similar things. Now Tennessee may not be that great. Um I do think Hopkins makes them a lot more interesting. So I'm kind of all on board on Chig. I think I'm
Okay.
more on board on Chig than I am on Dolchich. So
Yeah,
for whatever that's
100%.
worth.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see. So you touched on the 14 yards per reception, which was first among tight ends, but also first among tight ends was the 2.6 yards per route run. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's an incredible number. Also first was 7.8 yards after the catch per reception. Like
Oof.
that's disgusting.
Yeah, that's
And
really good.
and then his receiving grade was actually number 2. Um, so that's pretty impressive because Travis Kelsey was number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole lot of guys that we like to talk about a ton that could have easily, should have, maybe possibly been right in that conversation. But a rookie out of Tennessee was the guy who did it. So um, I'm happy. I've got him. You know, I don't want to get too nuts here, but I picked him up in a best ball dynasty league, and
Nice.
I'm super happy about it. So I felt like I reached, but now I look at the numbers and I'm like, no, I just we should all be higher on him than we are. I think so.
I think so
Um,
too.
But we'll stick in this offense and we'll roll over to the wide receivers and touch on Traylon real quick. So his
Oof.
value was 104 last year, and now he's at the 108. So I don't know if I would. Yeah, that's a drop. I would probably trade him for the 108 right now. But
In a heartbeat.
yeah, he finishes the 76th or 78th wide receiver last year with one top 15 week. And he's being projected as the wide receiver 38 going into this year. And I mean, yeah, Hopkins is here now, right?
Yeah. And
So,
that is huge.
yeah,
It's way bigger than other offenses adding a dominant weapon. If you look at the average number of targets for Ryan Tannehill's number two receiver, it's since he joined Tennessee, it's 68 is the average, which isn't terrible. It's not great. That's with a 92 target season from Corey Davis. So if you take that season out, drops all the way down to 60. And the past two seasons without Corey Davis, it's been 55 average. Treylon Burks had a reception percentage of 62% last season. So now you're getting around 62% of 55 catches on an offense that doesn't throw that much. Like, I don't know. I'm not super interested. I think DeAndre Hopkins nukes Treylon Burks' value. I think Treylon Burks coming out of the draft was a um a future kind of piece that they wanted to mold and wasn't ready to be a wide receiver one. And I think DeAndre Hopkins does the benefit for the Titans of extending Burks even more time because they have one dominant receiver typically, and then the other guy's just there outside of that Corey Davis year. So I'm selling, and that's why I think his value is going to go down by the end of this year. If you were interested in Burks, I may buy him at the end of the year. I'm not sure. I just don't see Tennessee having two dominant fantasy wide receivers, and I still think Hopkins can play. He looked good last year when he came in.
yeah, he looks fine. Damn, dude. I'm like, I thought him getting fed was nice. Like last week, I was borderline heating up on him, and then yeah, Hopkins comes in, and it's like, ah, but you're forgetting my two favorite words, Will Levi's,
That's
because
true.
Is in town, and he wears blue jeans. So, I think that if they make the move to that, it could definitely be a more exciting offense. But I do think that Treylon is definitely not ready to be the wide receiver one. So not asking him to do that is a benefit to him. I think the value is lower, much lower than it was last week because the
Hmm.
ceiling is gone now.
Hmm.
It's he's subterranean, but I do think he's going to be consistent. I think he's going to be improved, and I think he's going to be stable. And I want to see him work in the slot more, man. When he was in Arkansas, he kicked ass. It was a tank with the turbo, but
Hmm.
his dominant year there was 68% slot snaps, and then he comes in his rookie year and only gets 21%, and it just didn't work that well. Obviously, he was making a transition health wise and all sorts of things, but I think put the guy in the slot, do what works, let him grow from there. And
Hmm.
I think he has some potential, but I would be pretty shocked if he ended up as a wide receiver 38
Yeah.
coming into this year. So,
That being said, though, if you do like Burks as a prospect and believe in him for the future, now might be a good time to kind of grab him while everybody's terrified of DeAndre Hopkins. You could probably that 108. I wouldn't
don't
pay
don't give
that,
don't give the 108.
but if you can get him, like toss somebody a second or even a
Yeah.
future second, maybe a two future seconds or something. See if they'll get scared. I don't know that I'll be doing that. I was never the biggest Burks guy on earth anyway, but if that's your guy, man, like now is the time. Go grab that guy because he's still young. He's only 23 years old. Like he's got time to develop, and who better to teach him than Hopkins? I mean, there's probably better guys because they don't really play the same style, but
Yeah, it could be worse, he could be learning from Kyle Phillips or
yeah,
whatever. So,
exactly. He could be trying to
um
teach the Titans wide receiver room, you know?
yeah, Well, yeah, you should definitely go get him because I don't think we're going to talk about anybody else that people are going to part ways
Probably
with.
not.
So we'll get right into Christian Watson, man.
Hmm.
Obviously, Green Bay. He was the 112. Now he is going closer to 107 if you're trying to pick him up at a 2023 pick. And I'll give you the per game. He was the 35, wide receiver 35, finishes 41. But the guy had 5 top 15 weeks, 4 top 10 weeks, and he had a top 3 week. And they're projecting him as the wide receiver 33,
Oof.
which is some shade. If you ask me,
Yeah.
honestly, must be the Jordan Love effect.
Hmm.
But you look at what he's got, he's a tie-in for fourth in yards after the catch, um, per catch, with AJ Brown at yeah, at 6.4.
That's a
Like
lot.
that's insane. That's pretty good. If you're doing anything that AJ Brown is doing, then that's pretty good. And then it's the contested catch rate was 75%, which is only 12 targets,
Hmm.
but he caught 9 of them. And I know you remember, but I think a lot of us remember seeing those contested catches, and they were huge plays. So
Hmm.
just
Massive.
his big play ability, it's like, come on, come
Yeah.
on, guys. Wide receiver 33. Tell me how dumb these folks are.
I think it's very silly. If you look at all of Watson's stats, like he keeps getting put in comparison with like really, really impressive names. You already highlighted it there with the yak, with AJ Brown. But yards per route run, which I know we're gonna get into later, is a really important stat. Like anybody that's anybody is gonna be in the top 10 of that. And for receivers with 50 or more targets, Christian Watson was at 2.26 yards per route run, which made him 11th in the league. That's in front of names like Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase. Like he was out there dominant. Like he was the number one guy. He's gonna be the number one guy in Green Bay. Like I like Dobbs a lot too, and he may be the possession guy that Love relies on a lot more. But the guy that's gonna get you the points in Green Bay is gonna be Christian Watson. Just incredible explosive ability. You were talking about his contested catch rate. He only had 12 contested catches and dominated at him, not catching 9 of 12 of them. But that means only 12 of his 65 targets were contested. So he was just blowing past everybody on all the other ones. Like, just, I don't know. His passer rating when targeted this year was 123.3, which was second in the NFL. So
Jeez.
I don't know, man. Like the guy just seems to just be able to produce. He's gonna score big. Like maybe we have a more impressive Gabe Davis on our hands, like a more consistent Gabe Davis, and we're gonna have the weeks where Christian Watson goes for 40 yards on 2 catches or whatever. But then you're gonna have the games where he has 3 touchdowns and 150 yards on 6 catches. Like I like it a lot. It all is dependent on Love, and that's fair. But there are 258 vacated targets in Green Bay too, and they got to go somewhere. And speaking of Traylon Burks saying we don't want him to teach the Green Bay wide receiver room, well, guess who is doing that? Or sorry, to teach the Titans room. Guess who's doing that in Green Bay? Christian Watson. He's pretty much the most experienced wide receiver on that roster now.
Wow.
So like I don't know. Like, I just
I
33
don't know.
seems weird. I mean, people aren't high on Love, and I get it. He hasn't shown a lot, but I don't know. Pure volume, I think Christian Watson has a chance to beat 33, even if it's not a very productive year.
Yeah, he should. And then I think long term, and honestly, this is kind of the first guy on this list that strikes me as like a long term asset. Like you pay the price now, and you're gonna be happy for years to come. And
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, like you're comparing him to Gabe Davis, but picture Gabe Davis in an offense that doesn't have Stephon Diggs in it. Like
That's true.
there's a multiplier there when it comes to actually getting a respectable target share.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I think that, yeah, Gabe Davis plus for sure, without a doubt. But now it's getting real vicious, man. We're
Mm.
getting we got
High class territory.
some crazy shit. I don't even know. I know what order I'm gonna go in,
Hmm.
but I don't want you guys to, these are just random order. It doesn't matter. Don't read too much into it. But I'm gonna go with Chris Olave.
Hmm.
Yeah, obviously the Saints, New Orleans. He was the 106 in our draft last year, and he is currently trending at the like the 102. If you're trying to get him this year, you'd have to give up the 102, and it's easy to see why. He finishes the wide receiver 25 last year with 3 top 15 weeks and 2 top 10 weeks, and they're projecting him to be the wide receiver 13 this year. And I don't know, man. There's so much good to say here. We gotta keep it, respectable on the time that we allot to each player. But I'll get into it. I thought the yards per route run, something we've been talking about a little bit here, for him was 2.42, which was seventh
Mm.
in amongst wide
Crazy.
receivers. Yeah, it was a very, very good number. Just for perspective, that was right between Devontae Adams and Cooper Cup, so that's pretty good. Um, and for even further perspective on this number, if you look at it, the top 10 of guys in that in yards per route run, that list included 8 of the top 8 wide receivers in fantasy last year. And then the other 2 out of the top 10 was Cooper Cup. It wasn't top 8 because of injuries. And then Chris Olave. So
Hmm.
he's, I mean, it's a name riddled with superstars and a consistent stat because of that.
Hmm.
So it's pretty clear, like, he was pretty much the only show in New Orleans. But the fact that now he's rolling with Derek Carr, I mean, that's got to be an uptick. There's been literally zero new additions to this wide receiver room, and by zero I mean they added James Washington and Brian Edwards. So that's probably a negative number if you're asking me emotionally to weigh in on this. um but yeah, what do you think of Olave?
I mean, I think to me, it's pretty clear that there's like the two. I mean, Drake London will hopefully see kind of join this, but Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave just came in and were playing like they'd been around for 10 years. Like
Yeah.
they just came in and they look like dominant number ones to me. And like certain stats show it, the yards per route run, like you're talking about. But then you get Chris Olave as a rookie, 114 targets, 72 receptions. He played 95.8% of snaps in his rookie season. Like he was there every snap basically. And then he had 26.7% of the target share as a rookie. Like that is true number one status. And he only had a 63.2% catch rate. But if you adjust that to take away like uncatchable balls and stuff, he's at an 80% catch rate. So like this guy, he's just gonna be, I think both these guys are gonna be incredible. And we set it up this way because of the rivalry between them. Seems like you have to either really love Chris Olave or really love Garrett Wilson. And I don't understand why they both can't just be sick. Like, why aren't we looking at the future standard of the wide receiver position in both of these guys? I mean, you add in Chase, you add in Waddle, like this is the new age, and we're seeing it, and they're starting super early, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, Chris Olave does get an upgrade at quarterback to me. I mean, Andy Dalton is efficient enough at getting people the ball, but Derek Carr, we've seen him be able to produce. I'm really excited about Chris Olave. I could see him breaking even top 10 if it goes right.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not biased at all, people. Trust me. Least biased Ohio State player values ever. So, Ohio State, is that what we're talking about right now? Garrett Wilson, baby. Like you said, you can't say Chris Olave's name without your next breath being dedicated to Garrett Wilson. And it's clear to see why, man. I mean, in the NFL draft, one was taken slightly ahead of the other. And then now in the for the belt draft, the 105 to the 106, Garrett Wilson was taken one pick earlier. And even with the value system I was using, you would have to give that same 102 plus a second to get Garrett Wilson. So there is a plus to that. And, he was the rookie of the year offensively and the wide receiver 21 with 5 top 15 weeks, 3 top 10 weeks, and a top 5 week. And he's being projected as the wide receiver 10 this year.
Hmm.
Holy, holy, holy. I know that you are a big fan of his. You're welcome, man. I gave Christian the pick that it took to get him Garrett Wilson, and all he had to do was give me the 101. No big deal. Um, but man, I'll just get my stat out of the way and then I'll let you form your love letter. And I'll just get off screen and let you just have a candle lit with Wilson. But as for me, as the missed tackles force as a
Mm,
rookie to have 22 of them. That's great. That's second in the entire National Football League behind Debo Samuel. So,
mhm.
like you're 5 missed tackles forced above AJ Brown.
Mhm.
Uh, does that mean you're better than him? You think you're better than him? It's incredible. That just goes to his playing style and the unstoppability of a player like that. And you look at Ohio State, right? And he had 19 in his last year there. And it's like, well, if he's breaking the same amount or, forcing the same amount of missed tackles at the NFL level that he was at college, like this player is seamless from college to the pros, and you never ever see that. It's just like you're saying with Olave,
Mhm.
like these guys. I don't think people are taking them seriously enough. Like I know
I
Chase
agree.
came out and Jefferson came out, and like you get hyped up on these guys, but like people are still chasing these 28, 29-year-old guys. Like their value is never going to fall off. And then you've got these two guys that are
Mhm.
just freaking they're the next one too, man. They're
Mhm.
they're they're on their way up. I mean, maybe they're the next 3, 4, whatever you want to say, but we got to put a little more respect on these guys' names. And I'd like you to tell me why Garrett Wilson deserves it.
No, I 100% agree with you. It's become a problem, I think, in the NFL fandom recently that like people see somebody do something like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase drop onto the scene and just be incredible, or Patrick Mahomes, and they think that this is the standard, like that should be the new standard, and that to me is like outliers. Like this is what we watch the game for, is to see somebody like Justin Jefferson come in and crush it like that. Just because these guys didn't have 1,400 yards in their rookie season does not mean that they're not going to end up doing that on a consistent basis. And both of them came in. But honestly, specifically Garrett Wilson came in, just the way he played again, like looked like he'd been there the whole time. Like he didn't lose a step. I tried to keep the Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson stats pretty close just to see the comparison. So as Garrett Wilson as a rookie, 139 targets, 83 receptions, played 96.7% of his snaps as a rookie, and he had 25% of the target share. Same thing with his catch rate. It was 59%. If you adjust it, it goes up to 88.3% catch rate. My man is just smooth with it. Like he just, and you're talking about the forced missed tackles. Like, okay, maybe he doesn't have the deep threat ability of Chris Olave. I mean, there are 40 times which suggest that he does, but whatever. That's kind of Olave's game. But Garrett Wilson is an animal at getting open, catching the ball, getting yards after by forcing these missed tackles. He's just smooth, always, always going to catch the ball to me. Like he's just one of those guys. Aaron Rodgers said it. He reminds me of Devontae Adams in similar like play styles with the like strength of the hands, the ability to move his body and like get open. He's just really fun to watch to me, like almost surgical. And you know what? The biggest stat I'm going to bring up isn't even about him, because his quarterback play was atrocious. And I know that Olave's was as well, but Zach Wilson finished 32nd in the league for on target percentage with 67% of his throws being on target. Aaron Rodgers, in a down year where everyone wants to sell him down the river, was second in the league with on target percentage of 80.6%. Now, you're telling me that in a down year with Aaron Rodgers, he's still getting guys the ball on target 80% of the time, and Garrett Wilson just had 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns with a guy getting him the ball 67% of the time on target? Come on. This dude can feast. I think it's going to be absolutely electric, and especially like in PPR leagues, it could be very similar to what we saw with Devontae and Aaron Rodgers, where it's just he's just going to hit him every time he's open, because why wouldn't you? And I think Wilson's going to absolutely feast. I want both these guys, obviously, but I have been a Garrett Wilson supporter, and like that's the guy I want. And I just think I'm planting my flag in the ground, and I think he's going to be a top 10 receiver easily.
Yeah, he definitely got the better quarterback. So this rivalry is becoming skewed. But yeah, man, Garrett Wilson is amazing. Too bad. I'll trade you Brees Hall for him, straight
Oh,
up.
that's tough. No, okay. I'm all
Better
right.
not.
I'm
All
write it
right.
out.
Well, that's it. We'll leave next week as a surprise. I'm pretty sure I know what we're doing, but I don't want to put anyone on the spot by making them commit to it. So you're gonna have to come back and see what actually happened. And don't read the title; it won't give it away. It will next week. It will.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Bit of a shorter week for us. We had to kind of rush out. I'll be going down to Florida, so
I'll be here.
we'll be getting this out though for you on Friday, just like normal, and then we'll hit it back next week. So until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we're looking forward to hanging out with you again.
See you.
I took a lease out on your heart.